Hello, everyone. Welcome to July's open office. Who here has been to a Monzo event before? And who here is here for the first time? Okay, well, welcome to all the new people. A few housekeeping things from me. I would say come and grab some food, but you've eaten all of it. So, but please do help yourselves to drinks as well. If you need to go to the toilet, the ladies is here and the men's is just down the hall towards the reception area. If there's a fire or some sort of emergency, please make sure I leave the building first. And then your emergency exit is out the way you came or over the room over here. So today we're going to be hearing from our product teams or our product legal teams and our writing teams to hear about how we work we like to ship things fast at Monzo. We're always like trying to move as quickly as we can, but at the same time, we're a regulated bank, which means we have to follow all the relevant rules and regulations. And so there's a kind of like interesting tension there, which we'll explore and hear about. So I'm going to introduce Kelly from our product legal teams and Max, who's one of our writers, to talk you through how we move fast and stay in control. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah, working. So, hello. I'm Kelly. I work here in the product legal team at Monzo. So I'm going to give a brief chat about our regulators, or very brief chat about our regulators, and then go on to talk about how the product legal team works, what areas we work on, and some of the challenges we face on a daily basis. So, as you may or may not know, Monzo is a fully fledged UK regulated bank. So it's subject to dual regulation from both the PRA and the FCA. The PRA are responsible for prudential regulation and the supervision of firms that could affect the stability of the UK financial markets. And the FCA, on the other hand, is responsible for the conduct of those financial services firms and works to ensure fair outcomes for customers. So one of the ways that the FCA does this is through its FCA handbook, which sets out rules and guidance for firms to follow. For the purposes of this talk, I'm going to briefly touch upon the FCA principles that are set out in the handbook. So the principles are set out in the FCA's aptly named sourcebook, Principles for Business, also known as PRIN. So they're a general statement of regulated firms' key obligations under the financial services regulatory system. So today, both me and Max are going to talk about Principle 7, communication with our customers. So who's product legal? What are we? What do we do? So the team is made up of a mix of legal and compliance skill sets. My background is predominantly in compliance, so I focus on all things product with a compliance lens. I'm going to try and keep the talk quite high level, so I won't be drilling down into particular regulation or their application today. The team predominantly works with the objective to getting products out the door or launch as quickly and as safely as possible. So how do we do that? So within the team, we have relationship leads, each of the main point of contact for one of the collectives across Monzo. To clarify what a collective here is at Monzo, it's what we name our different business areas. So our relationship lead within the team ensures that each collective has a legal and regulatory support system to ship products as quickly and as safely as possible. So one of the ways we do this is through Slack. It's the key way that we communicate across the business and work together. If you're not familiar with using Slack, it's kind of like WhatsApp for work. So you have a lot of collaboration tools and we can all work together in one place. It's invaluable pretty much in keeping us up to date on projects, and we have countless team channels as well as product legal having its own channel to deal with any queries we may get. So teams can post in our channel. It's like typical queries we may or may not get. So to help us move fast and stay in control, one of the things we try to consider when we receive queries is how can we make this efficient and scalable? And how can we do this as quickly as possible? So beyond replying to the queries that we may get, we think about the impact and the reach of the query that we received. So if necessary, we might produce a guide or some training for the teams to empower them with the knowledge to build safely. This continues to add to our ever-growing centralized legal knowledge database that is available to everyone at Monzo. So here are some of the things we've been working on recently. Monzo Plus, you may or may not know, is Monzo's reward kind of like package bank account with lots of cool features. So there's insurances, kind of extra withdrawals abroad, emergency cash features, things like that. We also do savings. So there's a mix of ISAs, easy access, and fixed savings products. Overdrafts and loans, which I'm not going to explain, so I'm hoping most people know what an overdraft or a loan is. energy switching, so you can now kind of switch in the app with either over or Octopus, and financial promotions and adverts. So you may have seen some of our recent TV ads. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about kind of the financial promotions and advertising communication with our customers piece. So back to Principle 7, communication with customers. An integral part of this rule is clear, fair, and not misleading. So it's the holy grail of all communications with customers, and is repeated across a number of FCA rules. The rule applies to all media types and is particularly of interest to the FCA in adverts, because predominantly that's the main way that they communicate with their customers, and it's the most regular contact customers are likely to have with financial products. So these are some of the areas that the FCA regulates in relation to financial promotions and adverts, so savings, bank accounts, insurance, mortgages, and as I said previously, this applies to all media types. That also includes social media. So in recent years, the FCA has definitely recognised the importance of social media channels. It doesn't want firms to not be able to use them, but they're also aware that these channels can form a significant part of customer product knowledge and can also influence their decision making. So in 2015, the FCA released finalised guidance on its approach to financial promotions in social media. However, it's fair to say in the last 4 years that there's been a significant development in the audiences of social media and the approaches that they have taken. So what can you do about it? So the developments in Instagram, for example. Currently, Instagram has 1 billion active monthly users, and 80% of those follow a business account. These platforms are offering new ways to engage with customers, but also new challenges for legal and compliance and regulatory teams to make sure that they meet the requirements of the FCA, as well as engage with the customers in a new and modern way. So one of the ways that we can move fast and stay in control is taking the FCA 2015 guidance into consideration. Although it does offer guidelines and clear kind of levels of where the boundaries are, it does give some hints and tips on how to use the regulations to be able to interact with customers in social media platforms. So one of the ways it does that is by suggesting the use of images in character-restricted content. So you can get all the information that you need to the customer in a clear, fair, and not misleading way through images and limited words. Alternatively, you can use, in some financial promotions, compliance or signposting, so kind of click-through compliance or signposting parts of blogs and things like that, that can give the comfort to the customer in terms of the information they're receiving and also stay within those guidelines. More recently, the Advertising Standards Authority have released an influencer's guide to making ads clear. Although it's not directly applicable to everything we've spoken about so far, it does kind of give like a taste of where the advertising space is going in relation to social media. So I think things like this are a great thing to read and to really get up to speed on in your like regulatory teams, to make sure that when you do face these kind of challenges from social media, you've got a good breadth of knowledge to be able to tackle them, to be honest. So that's all. I'll hand over to Max.
Hello. Hi, thank you, Kelly. I do need that. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Max. I'm one of the writers here at Monzo. There are 3 of us in total. We're all generalist writers here, so we all write everything all the time. There's no specific set thing that we work on. But something that each of us do every single day is take Kelly's complicated legalese and turn it into nice, clear, compliant words that people can understand. But before I joined Monzo, it wasn't quite like that. We didn't work quite the same as we do here. So before I joined the product and legal teams, might work a little bit like this. It's really, really ruined my meme. That's how things work normally. Some of you might be familiar with this way of working, that kind of like us versus them. Or you might hear things like, have legal seen this? Or have we put this through legal yet? This idea of just like chucking some wording or this product or this thing over the fence and then waiting for them to lob it back over the other way. It's not cool. It doesn't bode well for you and your teams. It's not a great way of working, but it also doesn't bode well for the customer, right? Because you're not working towards what they need and what they want. As a writer, this is something, I don't know if we've got any writers here at all. No, or we do, but they're shy. So as a writer, this is a conversation we're quite familiar with. So Legal says we need to add a disclaimer here. There's a 0.0005% chance it won't work as we expect. And then the writer will say, but nobody's going to read a disclaimer down there. What's the point of putting it there? And then so the product manager of the term will say, yeah, so in case you didn't hear, legal says we need to do this. So can you whip something up real quick? I took this from a blog post called 10 Things That UX Writers Hate to Hear. It's well worth reading. So at Monzo, like Kelly and I don't always agree on stuff. Like that's just the way it is. Like we don't always agree. But what we do is we always listen to each other's views and we work together to try and find a compromise that's right for the customer. But how do we know what's right for the customer? How do we decide what is right from our writing standpoint and from our legal standpoint? We don't have to because the FCA tell us, they're a regulator, they like telling people what to do. As Kelly said, this is our sort of like benchmark for every single piece of customer communication that we put out. It has to be clear, fair, and not misleading. So that's like the bar, right? So that means that if banks meet this bar, they can sleep easy at night knowing that day they didn't screw anyone over. That's like the minimum that they need to do is just not fuck anyone over. Obviously at Monzo, we like to try and do things a bit better than that. I've only got a few minutes today, but I'm just going to focus on one piece of writing that I work on with Kelly and with the legal team to help product teams get things that they're building out the door. Terms and conditions, everyone's sort of like most exciting topic. It's kind of backwards that the most important information for a customer is the very thing that no one ever reads. Literally no one here reads terms and conditions. Do any of you read terms and conditions? So yeah, we've got a few lawyers in the room, haven't we? That's probably the wrong question to ask. So as a bank, obviously, it's super important that we make sure our terms and conditions are like really, really easy to understand and that people are encouraged to read them. Because if they don't, then there's a good chance they'll sign up for something that has like really, really serious financial implications for them, get them in a lot of trouble, and it's just not a very responsible way to bank. And obviously at Monzo, that's not how we do things. So now on average, we did like a little study last year. I think it was about May 2018. We looked into like 5 of the biggest banks, and we had a look at their terms and conditions. And basically, on average, they were 20,000 words long, each one of them, which like just no one's got time to sit down and read. No one's going to do that. Like no matter how much you're into terms and conditions, if it's not for your job, you're not going to read that. And so in 2016, the FCA said that the fundamental problem with terms and conditions is that firms taking an over-disclosure approach in order to prevent litigation, which basically means it's banks covering their own asses instead of looking out for customers, which is what they should be doing. So if we just go back to big banks, 20,000 words in their terms and conditions. At Monzo, ours are 1,400. That's the position that we're in now. It's a constant struggle as things get introduced and as we introduce new products. Those terms and conditions are like trying to get bigger and better, bigger, not better. And then that's like where myself, Harry and Emily, the writers and the marketers have to try and step in and find a compromise for the customer. We keep them brief in lots of ways, loads of different ways that we can do that. But the thing that we do mostly is we try and introduce the important information in context. So at the time in the in-app journey, we don't sort of like wait to like give it to you all at the end in the legal bit. So if there's a particular part of the app through the journey, you need to know about something, we tell you there and then, because that's the way that we should do things. So it doesn't come as a surprise or you don't miss it. So yeah, terms and conditions really, really long, but they're also really difficult to understand. They're complicated, they have long sentences and they use convoluted language. But probably worst of all, like my biggest bugbear, is that they write like full paragraphs in like all caps. And it's like super weird. Like why are you shouting at your customers? Like it's terms and conditions. Like they're just trying to find out, I don't know, if they can use their card in a foreign country or something like that. And you've got like whole paragraphs or pages in all caps and it's just super weird. But not only is it like really aggressive and strange, but it actually makes your writing like way harder to read as well. And that's obviously not great. So how do we do things here at Monzo? We're really proud of our tone of voice. Like if you've known us for any longer than 5 minutes, you'll know that we shout about our tone of voice all the time. We're really proud of the way that we speak to our customers, like on our website, in our app, in our ads, and our terms and conditions are no different. Like we give our terms and conditions the same love and attention as we do everything else. So how do we measure how easy our terms and conditions are to read? So we use a test which was created by this man, Rudolf Flesch, the Flesch Reading Ease test. basically calculates the readability of a piece of writing based on two different things. So the average sentence length, so the average number of words in a sentence, and then also the average word length, so the average number of syllables in a word. So you put your writing in, the test kicks out a score of 0 to 100, 100 being super easy to read, everyone can read it, 0 being no one can read it. So to give you an idea of what those scores actually mean in reality, Shakespeare's work scores in at 40, perhaps unsurprisingly. A typical Financial Times article, you can expect about 50 is the sort of score that they get. Traditional banks score an average of 56. And then challenger banks come in at about 59. And then at the moment, our reading test comes in at 77, which obviously is great. And basically what that means is that like most 11-year-olds would be able to read our terms and conditions and have a pretty good idea of what they're all about, essentially. It's something that we're really proud of, but best of all, obviously, it's not for us, it's for our customers. And so we really love when customers tell us that they appreciate our terms and conditions, and it's actually something. Some people have even joined Monzo because they think our terms and conditions are great. That's something that they tell us. Here's some feedback we got recently. I would probably read these as they are not in legal speak. Like, you know, it's not the most glowing feedback, but like to hear people talk about terms and conditions in this way, like in a positive light, is a cool thing, right? I would probably read these. They're not guaranteeing that they will, because they're humans and they've got other stuff to do. But yeah, that's kind of a cool thing. And like, I was in a user research lab session yesterday, and I actually did like a little fist pump when the person got to the end of the flow and started reading the terms and conditions. They read like the whole thing. Yeah, you don't see that very often. Yeah, so like that was really, really quick run through of like terms and conditions and what we do. But this is a really great blog post on the Monzo website, which gives you like, I think it's like 4 main tips for how you can improve your terms and conditions, like quick wins, things you can do like almost tomorrow. And then at the end, we've got like some advice on what you can do to make like the bigger cultural changes, like the ways of working with your legal team a little bit easier. Because we appreciate that everyone's businesses here are different, and like we can't just go back into work tomorrow and like change everything and sort of get working the way that we do. So yeah, if you just Google that title, it should come up. And that's it.
Cool, thanks very much. We now have time, maybe 15, 20 minutes for questions. So Jan's going to run around with the mic. Who would like to kick off with the very first question? Ooh. Yes, in the front row. Yeah, and I'll use this mic.
You mentioned sort of banks, existing more traditional financial institutions having this complex language. Me and a couple of my colleagues here, we are currently working in one.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, how would you go about maybe, what are some practical steps of maybe starting that institutional change? So do you have any maybe tips for kind of what was your approach beginning this process?
So
how would we
getting
go
to this.
about maybe convincing those that this needs to happen?
Yeah, I mean, we can probably try and answer that together, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, at Monzo, and as writers at Monzo, we have like just buckets of information. There's like proof points for like why clear like writing and clear words are like really important for customers. So obviously from the writing side, yeah, we've got loads of evidence and like proof that you could take to the people that you work with to show why it's an important way of working. If your question's more about like how do you get 2 different teams working better together like that, like marketing or legal, yeah, you're right. Like it's hard, like it's really difficult, and that's what that like end piece of the blog post that I was just talking about would be really useful for you. Obviously, like Monzo's kind of always worked that way. So you're right, to try and get people to change behavior is like really, really difficult. But yeah, check out the bottom of the blog post. It definitely takes time, but it's got to start with like the evidence, right? Instead of just saying we should make this shorter or we should make this clearer, like to actually have those proof points for why it's important would be a good start. Do you have anything to add?
I think this is on, yeah. The other thing I would say is if you try and get your like legal teams involved quite early, then that can make quite a difference. So if you think about potentially pitching it to them that you want to shorten it down and go to them and say, like, what are the key things that need to be in this document and what are the things that you want to put in or are nice to haves, and then try and work from there, because then you have a foundation of stuff that, you know, definitely needs to be in the document. And then the other stuff you can think about maybe cutting back and potentially doing maybe some user testing to see if people are reading those extra bits that don't need to be in it.
Cool. Yeah, and we have some questions over here.
Hi guys, thanks. Great talk. When I started my business again recently, I went to a solicitor's firm and looking at terms and conditions for the business. And when they give me the draft terms and conditions with all the legal spiel that I like to think I'm good at terms and conditions, I could read them and understand them. I didn't have a clue what half of it meant. So I basically pushed that straight back and said, I need something that I understand at least, because I need to give that to clients and they need to understand it as well. One of the things they came back to me with was it needs to stand up in court and it needs to have taken the challenge of being faced in court for these particular things and be evidence. With the terms and conditions that you guys have drafted, that again, I completely with you, it's so easy to understand. Has it taken the test of being challenged at any point?
I don't know the answer off the top of my head. As far as I know, our terms and conditions haven't been challenged in court. One of the things I would add in terms of them saying it needs to stand up in court, one of the kind of trip areas of terms and conditions is them not being clear. So by actually making your language clearer, then there's less room for that kind of ambiguity about what the terms and conditions say and how to have that kind of challenge of it standing up in court. I'm more than happy to kind of have a chat afterwards, in a bit more depth about that, but that's probably all I can offer at the moment.
Hi, I just don't want to bother you too much. I've got several questions for you. I went on your website and I was trying to apply for any internships or graduate schemes and saw that you weren't recruiting at the moment, and I wanted to ask about that. That's question number one, and I'll ask the other questions after when you finish.
I can't speak to like what's going on in hiring at the moment. Like if there's not something on the website, then I guess we're not looking right now. But yeah, let's have a chat after, and then I can perhaps put you in touch with the right person. But sorry, I can't really help you with that right now.
Yeah, in the interest of time, if we could keep it to one question per person, that'd be great.
Right, so this is about sort of naming your products, because so I work at a company where we named all our products before we had a legal team.
Okay.
And so when they came in and we had to change our names of our products. So I guess from both a legal point and a writer's point, how do you guys name your products, and how do you deal with sort of challenges with the regulations and the rules around that?
Okay, kind of boils down a bit back to the terms and conditions in terms of obviously have product teams and user research that kind of look at those names, and Max can obviously talk in a bit more depth about that. When it comes to the legal side of naming them, we try and set out kind of, as I spoke about earlier, like guides and boundaries in terms of some of the stuff that has to be included. So prescriptive regulation on certain things such as savings, for example, some of those things, those terms you can't change around. For other products, we can be a little bit more relaxed, and depending on how the product is built and the audience, you can change those terms or the naming like around a bit. I think what you probably need to do is sit down and work out where those boundaries are. So do you have some products that have to be named like that? If you don't, then why not challenge it and see what users prefer? And then, yeah, speak to your product team potentially about renaming them. But there are some terms that we have to obviously stick to. Is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, so like just two things from me from like a writer's point of view on naming. The first one is we actually have a public guide that's available online, which is called How We Name Things at Monzo. Probably exactly what you're looking for. But just like a little insight into like some things that we do, like day to day, we have things called name storms, naming brainstorm. And just in case that wasn't clear. And so like we name all kinds of stuff, right? Like from the different colors that we have our cards available in, or maybe it's a different team that's working on a particular thing at Monzo. And so maybe the writers will have a really good crack at it first with the relevant people for like whatever it is that we're working on. And then we'll always run it past Kelly or the team just to go like, is there any issue with this? Like, is someone already using it, or does it get us into hot water for any other reason? But yeah, check out the guide. Do that.
Hey, thanks. So you were talking about starting with evidence, and you using that as a journey to convince stakeholders or legal teams that something needs to change. Um, I took a very similar approach and went to a legal team and said, these terms and conditions are ridiculous and way too upfront. We need to change it. And they went, oh, people can read. It's fine. Don't worry about it. So I went down an A/B split test, removed half the copy, and said, look, conversion rate's gone up. See, it is good evidence. And the legal team nearly had a heart attack because we removed half of the copy that was going through the A/B test. So how can you work iteratively and quickly in kind of testing scenarios to make sure that you're still compliant, but in a controlled manner?
Yeah, good question. So, like the way that Kelly and I work, like day to day, I guess, is like if there's something that I desperately need her to look at, or vice versa, like it's really as simple as just like coming down, and, like having a chat. Like I'm very aware of the fact that like things work sort of quite differently here at Monzo to perhaps like most other companies. Like how I'd known it to work before is like the legal team were often like this like entity that you'd like never even really see. Like you don't know where they are in the office, let alone like feel comfortable to go and actually just have a chat with them. So yeah, it's really just like giving each other like eyes on stuff like really early, and just like, and it's not just writers or marketers, right? Like everyone at Monzo needs to try and make sure that if there's something that might cause us problems, like we're letting the compliance teams know like really, really early, and just like staying in touch with each other, like having a catch up like every other day or something like that. Just like they're really like they sound really basic, like when you say that, but like actually I appreciate it's really hard to get those things going. But yeah, just trying to push that, just trying to like keeping those lines of communication open, basically.
Yeah, just kind of adding on that is getting legal and compliance teams involved. I know that in some businesses you kind of want to keep that separate, and kind of like as Max showed earlier, that you just leave legal to the last minute and kind of throw a piece of junk at them and expect them to solve it. So getting someone involved early, even if that person can't necessarily contribute at the start, just so they can hear the ideas and what the kind of general consensus is before making those decisions. Coming to someone after you've like ripped apart like their terms and conditions, if that's their baby, and then saying we've taken half of it away, probably will upset them, and they're probably going to push to try and get them back to where they were before. So not everyone that works in legal and compliance is a monster. So maybe just, yeah, try and just talk to them.
Hey there. Just curious, what was the hardest thing to translate in terms of from the kind of original legalese to the more plain English?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm just trying to think of something that we've worked on recently. So I think Kelly showed Monzo Plus. I don't know how many people are like sort of familiar with that. It's like our sort of like added offering, if you like, our packaged sort of account that you can pay a bit extra for. Yeah, so Kelly and I worked on the Monzo Plus terms and conditions. And the way that Monzo Plus works is that we partner with loads of different companies to offer services. So whether it's like insurance or I don't know, like yeah, so travel insurance or like extra money, like Western Union, for example, like partner with them. So that was like super hard because like it was hard enough working on our terms and conditions where all I had to do was work with our legal team, but then like having to do that with other people. Yeah, insurance for me is like is the answer you were probably looking for. Yeah, insurance is a minefield. Would you agree with that? Is
Yeah.
insurance? Yeah.
No, definitely. I think with the amount of regulation around insurance distribution and the kind of wordy documents that you get and the length of the terms and conditions, policy documents, things like that, it can be really difficult to kind of translate that into something that's quite a simple document.
Do we have any more questions? One in the middle. Cool.
Hi, my question is more around how you make sure the products are released as quickly as you can, working with legal and compliance, because I know sign-off process can be a bit of a pain if you're a product manager.
So it depends on the kind of how complicated the sign-off process is and what type of product it is. Typically, as I said earlier, the product legal team pairs with the collective, so they'll be involved in those conversations right from the start. So you'll know the type of product that's being built, kind of look up all the regulations, everything to make sure that you're up to scratch on what needs to be released, and you'll be involved from that journey right from start to finish. So it won't be that you leave it all to the end and then legal get involved and sign off. You sign off kind of as you go. So there's a whole kind of scope in terms of knowing when you're going to launch and working towards that along the way. There might be like individual sign-off parts in that for like financial promotions or kind of blog posts, but overall there'll always be a time frame in which product legal is already involved. So it's again getting involved like very early, and doesn't tend to be a delay. If there is a delay, then someone can flag that very early on in before it's even become a product effectively.
Great. Oh, do you have a question? Cool. Yen, could we run down here?
Hello. My question is actually related to product security. So how do you guys make sure that there's no money laundering happening in Monzo?
Yeah, I think similar with the hiring question, I could try and answer that, and it just wouldn't be helpful to you. Could you?
No, I think it's best to deal with our team that actually the fin crime team that deal with those kind of situations, not product legal.
And we do, like, our security team like do a really good job of, like, if anything goes wrong, for example, you might have seen like outages or whatever, we then make sure that we do like a kind of like post-mortem of and we post it all on the blog. But yeah, definitely want to speak to someone in that team to get the answer to that.
Do you have a question? Yen, one last question, I think.
Hello. Yeah. Hi. Thanks. I guess it stands to reason that increase in readability and transparency would increase the likelihood of customers reading your terms and conditions. But beyond that, do you have any empirical evidence that has actually led to more customers reading your terms and conditions?
So the question was, has the readability of them led to more people reading them? That was your question. And to be honest, I couldn't say that more people have read our terms and conditions because they're readable. Honestly, I couldn't tell you. I can go away and have a look, but honestly, I don't know if we have that evidence.
Thank you all very much for coming and all your great questions. Max and Kelly will be around afterwards if you have any more follow-ups. Otherwise, feel free to mingle and grab a few drinks. And thank you so much for coming. Cheers.